So we were nesting and healing, and also I don't even know I had the bandwidth at that time to think about what the big picture dream was. There was no plan. It was just, let's get through these next couple years, create community, which was always so important to both of us in our new environment. Most people's assumption that if I was going to go into business, it would be fashion or beauty. But those 5 years at home, I wasn't running around wearing beautiful outfits. The business will, of course, go on longer than a series. There's nothing taboo. Doesn't need to be anything taboo about talking about our financial independence or our independence overall.
The mainstream media aren't telling you the truth about what happened at Fortune's Most Powerful Women Summit in Washington, D.C. yesterday. Meghan Markle, who was not the headline guest, by the way, there were far more important women there who stole the attention and were actually the people in demand by the folk in the audience, was heckled on stage. She was laughed at on stage. The power brokers knew that all of the malarkey that both Fortune and Meghan were putting forward about both her brand and her life was complete balderdash. And what's so astonishing about this is it wasn't even a big audience. I mean, look at this. From Queer Lips of Truth, who wrote, look at the millions of people that showed up for Meghan Markle's event with Fortune magazine. Empty. But what was most intriguing to me was not from the official footage. And of course, we are going to do a full analysis about all of Meghan's ludicrous smears and claims with P-Dina in just one moment. But as Meghan Markle pointed out, you can hear the audience laughing. Let me tell you this, Meghan wrote her own introduction for the host to read out. And what happened, and remember, Meghan is standing backstage with the interviewer from Fortune magazine. When this intro, clearly drafted for Fortune by either Meghan herself or someone connected to her, the audience start guffawing. They start laughing because the claims are so fantastical. And she has to listen to that before heading out on stage, knowing that she has a hostile audience because of her lies. Watch this.
Room. So, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, has held various roles over the years. Actor, Duchess, obviously, podcaster, philanthropist. She has her own TV show. She has executive produced. She recently added a new title to her resume, which is why she's here with us today, founder. And that's because earlier this year, she launched As Ever, a brand inspired by her love of cooking and entertaining. Alison Chantel, Fortune's editor-in-chief and chief content officer, joins Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, to discuss this newish venture and also how Meghan plans to leverage her incredibly significant influence for long-lasting impact in the business world and beyond. Please welcome them to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is so nice to see you. And Meghan, thank you for being here with us
Thank
today.
you for having me. It's great. Hi, everybody.
You've been all over the place, and we were talking backstage about how, yes, you've been to Europe.
Now, what's so fascinating is that introduction where you could hear, only because, by the way, Hello Magazine was actually in the audience and posted that because it was completely wiped from the official feed because of the response from the audience. And you could see when Meghan sat down, they even laughed. So this was a hostile audience because, of course, the people in the audience at this event know that Meghan isn't a founder. That's what got the biggest laughs. They know that she is a grifter. But of course, Meghan wanted to respond immediately to the criticism that she hadn't seen her children Archie and Lilibet given these recent jaunts to Paris and New York.
We were talking backstage about how, yes, you've been to Europe. You were just in New York, which, congratulations, you just won a humanitarian award for your work with online safety for parents and children. And you made it home for one day to see your kids.
Yes, I had to. We were talking about that because everyone said, oh, you must have gone from Paris straight to New York. I said, no, I need to see my babies. So went back to California for a day and then continued on. But I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Of course, and always job number one.
Her babies who barely see her these days. But this was a flop. This was a disaster. Princess Carparkle pointed out Meghan Markle droned on about nothing for 2 hours. At most, there were 36 people watching, which says a lot. It was incredibly boring and soul-killing, but she loved listening to herself. So don't worry, I'm not going to force you to watch the whole thing at all. What we've done is picked out some of these key moments so that once again, we can expose this woman as the serial liar and delusionist that she is. And of course, immediately, she had to get the digging about the British royal family when she was asked about Megxit and spoke about the fact that she just needed so much time to heal herself.
I want to rewind about 5 years ago when you and your husband left England and you descended on Montecito, California, and you planned what your next few years would look like in terms of the business impact you could have and the philanthropic impact you could have. And a lot of initiatives are going. But I want to just go back to that moment of as you and your husband were planning this out, how did you think about what you wanted to do, what your ambitions could do, and from your seat, what you could do for women?
Well, I think 5 years ago was a very different situation for all of us. And, Archie was so little, and I had just gotten pregnant with Lily around that same time. So we were nesting and healing, and also I don't know if I had the bandwidth at that time to think about what the big picture dream was. There was no plan. It was just, let's get through these next couple of years, create community, which was always so important to both of us in our new environment. And then as we started to get into our producing, through our deal with Netflix, really creating projects that we felt were compelling. And then I said, okay, I've always loved being able to share. I've always loved being able to cook and entertain. Is there a business here?
Oh, P-Dina. P-Dina. We have so much to go at here. But what I found most significant, actually, was the fact that the audience knew this was a joke. They were not engaged at all. When she was actually introduced as a founder, there was guffawing and there was heckling. Now, you could only hear it in the Hello Magazine version of it, and it was obviously pretty hard because of the music. But in the room, they said it was really, really obvious. And of course, that's why the introduction was then deleted from the video that Fortune put up.
Yeah, Meghan is just somebody that doesn't bring out the best of people. I think people, when they experience her, something overcomes their bodies, and there's this ick factor. They can sense a very fake person, someone who is trying to look like they are on top of the world, when the reality and the news and the things we see online has a completely different story, because Meghan is not somebody that people can relate to. And when you can't relate to someone like that, you just think about the kind of feeling that they give you, and people are attuned to that. And Meghan is just not someone that is relatable. She really is someone that before she even opens her mouth, you look at her and you just feel like, wait a minute, something just isn't right about this woman. And that's what it is. And, thank goodness they were there to capture it, Hello Magazine, because, we need to see the truth of what it was like there so that we're validated. Yeah, we know. Okay, yep, we know Meghan, she just is not relatable to a lot of people. It's really sad for her, but, she won't wake up to her reality. She won't pay attention to reading the room. That's Meghan's problem.
I mean, she plows on. And she always plows on. And this is what Tom Bauer says is the thing that he respects about her, actually. It's this sort of almost autistic-like ability to just block out any negativity. But again, there was another moment that prompted more laughs from the audience, because it's something that's so not true and shows you that she lives in her bubble. So she said again, P-Dina, that everyone in the world expected her to launch a fashion or beauty range, as if she's some type of fashion or beauty icon, which is, of course, never how she was viewed. Watch this. If you're enjoying what we're doing here on Outspoken, please consider joining our thriving community over on Substack, www.outspoken.live. You can sign up completely for free, but Substack is so important to me. It is a free speech platform. It protects me from big tech cancellation. Plus, you get to communicate directly with me. Head on over www.outspoken.live, enter your email address, and sign up today.
Probably most people's assumption that if I was going to go into business, it would be fashion or beauty. But those 5 years at home, I wasn't running around wearing beautiful outfits. I was probably in Birkenstocks and sweats like the rest of us, especially during COVID, or just barefoot at home. But I was making a lot of jam. So it ended up becoming the thing that really was my passion project that I turned into a business.
Amazing.
I mean, again, P-Dina, they weren't laughing with her, they were laughing at her because no one ever thought that she was going to launch fashion or beauty range. Like, where has this come from?
And she gave a completely different story. I don't know if you remember when she was speaking at that Times 100 women's event, something where she talked about a lady came up to her and had suggested that she do this business because of what she was gifting to so many people. So that right there is a completely different story. When she was within the royal family, we saw her in a lot of beautiful clothes. And I know there was a time during COVID, but come on, people are not relating to you as someone who is doing that, dressing down like that. And I think Meghan just tries to make people feel like she can be like them when all she ever does is try to be not like anybody else or to like other people. She just feels completely and embarrassingly fake. It is so sad, I think, for someone like Harry, because he sees how people do not like his wife. Can you imagine what that makes him feel like? And I think he himself is trying to not hate his wife, because we can see he's also given his wife the side eye a lot of times for the things that she has done. So she just comes out into the public and she just makes a lot of mistakes. She's embarrassing. She's not relatable. And she perpetrates. She's a fraud. She wants people to think that she is successful when we know she is not.
Oh, 100%. And this is so awkward. This is the really awkward thing about this entire interview, P-Dina, because of course it's Fortune magazine. So they were always going to be focusing on the business elements of her life. And I don't blame them for that. This wasn't like a tell-all interview about her marriage. This was clearly about her business. But the problem is she can't just admit that it's been a total disaster. So the stories are off the scale. Watch this.
What would your confessions be? Has it been harder than you thought, easier than you thought, more rewarding, harder? What's the takeaway?
Well, I think year one for any founder is just a lot of learns. And so we founded as ever earlier this year. I think the first drop was in February or March. And what you're looking for is, what are the consumer behaviors and habits? What are the products that they're gravitating to? And I had this incredible fortune of having every SKU sell out within under an hour, which is amazing. And also you don't learn a lot.
A lot about inventory management, supply chains, and all the rest.
Oh my gosh. So then I was doing Confessions of a Female Founder as I was building this. I'd always loved the podcast, How I Built This. And I thought, could we do something that feels a little bit like the tenor of how I'm building this? And really be candid, both talking to female founders who had scaled and sold, and equally to other founders that were on their first run, in many ways like I was. So I was learning from a lot of the women that I invest in and also that I'm friends with. But, I think my learns were to continue to give yourself the grace to have to pivot. And you do, because that first sellout, we said, great, let's 10x the inventory for the next seasonal drop. We'll get all the metrics that we need. And then it sold out within 4 hours, which again is amazing. but also not helpful. So I think it's just been a lot of learns and then extending and expanding the product categories to really see what those habits are and how we can show up in your home for you. So yes, jam was the origin story, but if I begin with that within your kitchen and that's the offering, how do we continue to grow into your lives with As Ever? So that's what we're working towards, especially for Q4.
Wow. I mean, denial is not just a river in Egypt, P-Dina, I would say.
Oh my
listening to that.
goodness. Is learns a word? Is learns?
It's awful.
It's look, Dan, I think Meghan can even be authentic in talking about the struggles, the hardships, what was difficult, what she learned. She is trying to show success in the first year because she's so great. She couldn't even not, fail because it just sold out. It is so unrelatable and just weird to hear someone try to say things that are the complete opposite from what our own eyes are showing us. I'm like, are you for real, Meghan? This woman, can't even stomach her. She's so bad in the way she tries to be relatable and talk about being a business person. You don't learn anything from watching this woman because she covers it up as, oh, it was just so successful and like it sold out. Oh my God, what again? I mean, I'm so successful. I just cannot understand how this woman can be anyone. How can you learn anything from her? How does she think she can come across as someone that helps people?
Isn't it? 100%. It is
Yes.
mean girl energy. Oh, but by the way, P-Dina, she's also so woke, and I know this is a bit of an American thing, but come on, she will not use the word Christmas. Watch this.
We have to be ready for holiday. So trying to be in steady state for most of the SKUs and really not being able to gauge how things are going to sell out, especially when you have people who have an appetite for the products in global territories, but we aren't selling internationally yet. And so they're finding workarounds where they'll have their friends stock up for them and then ship it to them separately. So the inventory is moving in a way that we hadn't anticipated, which is the biggest blessing.
Oh, please, Meghan. Please. Please. Get off the grass. The only people who are sending product to friends overseas are the reviewers in the United Kingdom. Okay? We want to talk about how bad the product is. Seriously. But then we get to Netflix. Okay? And this is where things get really interesting because she has to sell the end of the Netflix deal. And it's mortifying. And so what she immediately does is invoke the Obamas. Because, of course, the Obamas' Netflix deal was also a massive flop. But she thinks if I compare myself to the Obamas and it's also happened to them, then maybe it's not a bad thing. Look, honey, the Obamas were a disaster too. Netflix handed them a huge amount of money. There weren't any real successes. There were more than you had. And now Michelle's grifting on a podcast, moaning about her marriage every week. So this isn't the win you think it is, Meghan. Watch.
And can you talk a little bit too about the show and how it matches with As Ever, the brand, and Netflix's role in this? I know they've been a big backer of yours. You've worked with Bella, their chief content officer, to develop quite a relationship with Netflix over the years. And that partnership just renewed with slightly different terms. I'm wondering if you could talk about what are the terms now and how has that helped you build As Ever?
Yes, well, my husband and I were in an overall deal with Netflix, and then not dissimilar to Higher Ground and the Obamas deal. Once that had come to its term, the extension of it, which was such an incredible sign of the strength of our partnership, was now being in a first look deal, which is also exciting because it gives us flexibility to go to our partners first, and then at the same time to be able to shop content that might not be the right fit for Netflix, but has a home somewhere else. So for our non-scripted team and our scripted team, we've been doing a lot of content development that can meet different rooms. And then, of course, for the business, it's been incredible because when you have female executive leadership that is so supportive of me as an entrepreneur, what we've designed is being able to have so much robust support in year one, where you have the show complementing the brand, where content and commerce are meeting, and then still enabling me to have autonomy to build out my own team and scale it in the way that I envision. That will go on, the business will, of course, go on longer than a series.
Okay, so she's admitted it. It's over. It's over. Completely over. But then the editor from Fortune magazine puts her on the spot. And good on her for doing so. Because she actually says, okay, but, what's happening is there a series 3. And Meghan is unable to answer because, of course, we know it's been axed. We know With Love Meghan is never coming back, but she just won't say it. Watch.
General interest in, will we be seeing a season 3 of With Love Meghan? Will it be on Netflix? Do we know?
Well, the holiday special is coming out in November, and it's a really good one. So I think looking at that format, again, it's a year of learns. So we're able to say 8 episodes for 2 seasons. It's a lot of work. And having done Suits for 7 years, I remembered what goes into a production. I also recognize how much people want content in different sizes. So part of what we're testing out now is it's amazing to be able to sit and watch a show for 30 minutes, but how can I give you a recipe in 2 minutes? And where can I share that with you? And how that continues to grow as ever. So exploring all the options of what it could look like.
Oh, I'm mortified for her. As the Royal News Network posted, why is she talking about this and not doing it? E-content creators are doing this every single day. This should take her 2 seconds to figure out, and yet she's acting like she's had an epiphany and discovering this for the first time. Imagine being in the audience and paying for this level of drivel and knowing you can go on Instagram and find thousands of examples what she's talking about in 5 seconds. Also, thank you, Meghan, for acknowledging what has already been broadly reported, which is that With Love Meghan was an absolute flop. And P-Dina, this is where Meghan found herself so exposed on stage because there's no way to get around the facts. So no matter what spin she tries to put out, the facts are, yeah, there's a Christmas special. You filmed it at the same time as you filmed the first 2 specials. There is no new series. What we're going to get is some crappy Instagram videos on her phone because With Love is a disaster and as ever is a disaster.
Yeah, it's all a disaster. And she can't even, admit that, she just didn't do well with her Netflix show. It just was a flop. She wants to spin it as if, there's the holiday special. And, Meghan is the kind of person that doesn't show up in a way that makes people really relate to her because it's obvious to us. We see it, Meghan. Just say it. I mean, she's sitting there trying to spin herself around and trying to make herself sound as if it's all good, but it's not good, And I think even with her production company and the Obamas, I think her comparison when she tries to do that, she doesn't recognize that, the Obamas, to their credit, have won an Academy Award with their production company and their film American Factory. Meghan doesn't have anything notable.
No.
Everything that she has done that we know about has failed. Everything.
No nominations.
Right?
No nominations. And how mortifying that every single experience that she's had is like this. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Right,
exactly. But both the Spotify podcast, the Lemonada podcast, it's like there is a track record here. But Meghan has tactics, P-Dina. Have you noticed this? So things were getting tough on stage. So what she did was divert the conversation to something she's happy talking about, gift wrapping and odd jobs. And stupidly, the editor of Fortune magazine bought into it. Watch. Every day, we're not just consuming news, we're being conditioned by it. Headlines aren't written to inform, they're engineered to provoke outrage, shape loyalties, and drive clicks. What's sold as reporting is too often a carefully packaged narrative crafted to steer the way we see the world. It's not just the journalists. Behind them are corporate owners, political operatives, and algorithms deciding which stories dominate the conversation and which ones vanish without a trace. The result? A public that's divided, misled, and increasingly skeptical of what truth even means. But there is a way to break free from the spin. Ground News brings together headlines from over 50,000 sources across the globe. But what really makes it powerful is the transparency. You don't just see the stories, you see the political bias behind every source, the ownership ties, and the coverage breakdown across the spectrum. That's why over 1 million people have downloaded Ground News. Even the Nobel Peace Center praised it as an excellent way to stay informed, avoid echo chambers, and expand your worldview. And you can see for yourself at ground.news/outspoken. Now, my favourite feature is the blind spot feed. It shows you which stories are blowing up on one side of the aisle, but barely mentioned on the other. It's the clearest way to see media bias in action. So let's look at a recent story that the left is ignoring. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman accused Democrats they have forgotten why we lost in 2024, urging the party to avoid a government shutdown that would harm Americans. The right frames this as a rebuke of his own party, as Fetterman has broken with progressives on numerous issues, including on Israel, and in not referring to Trump as an autocrat. On the other side, the right is mostly ignoring that Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has paused a 2026 electric vehicle mandate and announced a new Buy Canadian policy as it adjusts to US tariffs. The left frames Carney's decision as a betrayal of climate initiatives while simultaneously applauding his focus on affordability. With every story, Ground News shows you the entire spectrum of who's reporting from left, from right, from the centre, how reliable each source is, and who owns each outlet. It's everything the corporate press doesn't want you to see. And right now, you can get 40% off the Vantage plan, which gives you unlimited access to all the features I personally use for less than a cup of coffee. Just visit ground.news/outspoken, click the link in the description box below, or scan the QR code on screen. That's ground.news/outspoken. But now, back to the show.
Of gift wrapping techniques. You guys know I used to teach gift wrapping at Paper Source and advanced gift wrapping. So, all of those things that you do as an auditioning actor, that's not the full circle I was expecting, but here we are.
Yeah, you had a lot of odd jobs. Froyo was another one, I believe.
Yeah, Humphrey Yogurt, that was my first job. And, when I used to do calligraphy, I used to do it for so many celebrity weddings and for hotels. And that was in between auditions. And at the time, I don't know why I didn't think to just buy a glove, but you don't want the natural oils from your hands to get on the beautiful paper. So I would just put a white tube sock on my hand, write all these very fancy cards for people.
Amazing. Well, a long way from the white tube socks on your hands, but we can all appreciate that.
Yeah.
Another story where there's no evidence. I mean, has anyone seen any of this calligraphy for these celebrity weddings? But the reason that Meghan did that diversionary tactic, right, is because she knew she was going to be asked some more difficult questions. And she was when it came to her world online. This is a really awkward one for her. It's an awkward one on so many levels, right? Because, of course, she's in this campaign against the social media giants, yet at the same time, she's pimping out her own children. And we also know that she is one of the most hated people online because of her own behavior. But again, there was such an egregious lie where she claimed that actually she receives more support online than criticism. Watch.
It's a hard decision to make because obviously people want to be hearing from you, but then they have lots of opinions that they stick in there that are not welcome, not helpful. And I'm curious, as you are, founders always have to look for signals in what's working, what's not working, how do I tinker, how do I pivot? How are you able to decipher out the constructive from obviously the not constructive that you need to ignore?
Well, there are certain things that I've done just for my own self-preservation, but also that I've applied to the brand and for the people that are incredibly supportive. I know, the question can be around naysayers, but if you really see the groundswell of support that surrounds the brand and me, that's what I feel the most, and that's what I appreciate. But by design, I also recognize that a lot of those people aren't going to my page to see negativity. And so not just protecting myself or the people that work with me, but also the supporters. So I don't have the comments section on. That's a choice. And yet part of that challenge that I was trying to solve for was, then how do I create community? That is so key to this brand, and it's so key to how I like to show up in the world. How do we actually connect if you can't have comments and exchange? So my social media manager would send me screen grabs of different things that people were posting in their UGC. And I said, okay, what am I going to do here? They said, you could do a text overlay and respond. And I said, oh no, in the same way that on my own camera roll at home, I'll zoom in and I can scribble a little note and send it to a friend. I've just started this construct where I will start writing in my handwriting a note to users who put up content. So I said, let's find small and creative ways to engage the community and let them know that I'm listening, that I really see and appreciate their feedback. So I think a lot of it is just designing what works best for you while also being really cognizant of what is going to help grow the business with an intentional and authentic point of view. And that's what I'm constantly working to try to achieve.
Okay, Meghan. So, P-Dina, we're just meant to take her word for this, are we?
I cannot believe this woman is handwriting thank yous to people that are saying nice things that she, wants to address. I cannot believe that's a bunch of malarkey. There's no way she is doing that, Dan, okay? First of all, if she wants to be authentic, how about be authentic and look at the good and the bad? Don't try to
Yeah, turn the
control your
comments on.
environment.
Turn
Yeah,
the
you would
comments
turn the
on.
comments on.
You say you want to have
take in.
community. Turn the comments on.
Right. She wants to be in her little princess world where everything is nice and pretty. Well, you know what? We don't live in that kind of world. So turn the comments on to show what people are really saying and thinking so you can really understand what your real problems are. You're not being authentic by trying to control your surroundings and what you see and hear. You just can't handle the truth about what people say about you, nor do you want to change and be a better person because you're not listening to what people are saying. I come from a very constructive way of speaking about Meghan on my channel. If only she would listen, she would do a lot
Yes, you
better.
wanted to help her. That was when you actually launched. You wanted to help this woman, but she has blocked out people who did want to give her constructive criticism. And then nearing the end of the interview, P-Dina, things start to fall apart. Okay, because the Fortune woman is actually trying to get some handle on how she's running this business right. What have you learned as a chief executive? And bizarrely, at that moment, and remember, she's already talked about it earlier in the interview, P-Dina, she brings up Suits again. A TV drama made by a major studio where she was a hired actress and had absolutely nothing to do with the management process whatsoever. Watch.
What have you learned about yourself as a leader and as a CEO?
Thank you. It's been incredible because when I was on Suits, that was my last time really in a position with a very large team. We had a crew of 200 people. And I worked on the show for 7 years, and I loved the crew. I loved that experience and the culture that's on set as well. And so I think being able to now have my own business, it's very different than being on set. And even the set with Love Meghan, that's a crew of 80 people. It's still a very large crew. But for my business, I've been very decisive about having a lean team. I think you want to have a great soundboard of people that are with you and with varied points of view. You want someone who's going to push back. You want someone who's going to be so creative and savvy in a space that might not be my skill set. So I love creating that culture, having that camaraderie with my team, and playing and being curious. Constantly just pushing the envelope to ask the questions of how can we show up in a way that truly indicates that we are putting care into every detail.
I mean, no, you have a lean team because your business is a mega flop, right? But I just want to play the start of that again, because I'm not sure if you noticed what I did. Watch this.
What have you learned about yourself as a leader and as a CEO?
Thank you.
P-Dina. Astonishing. What have you learned about yourself and as a CEO? Meghan replies, thank you, as if she has just been given a compliment. Now, I actually think this really shows how her mind works and some of the sort of derangement that we're dealing with here, because that was just a question. There was absolutely no compliment included in that question whatsoever. And she said, thank you.
She was happy to hear someone acknowledge her as a CEO. And she is, she didn't even answer the question, right? She looked past everything that the question was of her and just acknowledged it as a thank you for saying that I am this great CEO founder, and not even talk about what she's actually learned, because she can't even bring herself to even talk about how she has learned, because she's not someone that is a founder, a CEO by her education or her past successful businesses. She married into the royal family. Okay. This woman does not have the skill set. She can't even talk about anything that has been a revelation, or what's new about the experience of running a business. She can't even bring herself to say the basic things around being a CEO. And that is really sad, because if you can't acknowledge anything that you've learned, how can you move on and be successful and humble yourself enough to really take it all in, to look at yourself in a realistic way? She can't do it. This woman is so off the charts, unbelievable. I think, if anything, that's what makes her, I think, interesting, because we just look at her and we can not believe you can't even say anything that you've actually learned. That's really sad. That's like the basic that you should be able to do when you are starting a business that you've never done before. You have to acknowledge these things,
Totally.
and she can't even do it
W-
because she's
w-
so consumed with being called, this title, oh,
100%.
thank
And the thing is,
you.
P-Dina, the Fortune editor, I think, is actually starting to realize, well,
Hmm.
she's speaking mumbo jumbo, right?
Right.
We're not getting any meat on the bones. And so things actually get a little bit tense, because Meghan's furious at what she clearly thinks is a shady question from Fortune, as they reveal that she actually has less than 10 people in her team and that she is a micromanager. So again, and this is really fascinating about Meghan's psychology, she responds not by actually answering those criticisms, but boasting about how she's a good mother. It's really weird. Watch.
It's a small team. It's like 10 people.
Less than, yes.
Less than
For the tight team, yes, of course.
And so how do you decide where you're going to show up in those moments? Because I know you love detail and you want to be in charge of a lot. So how do you do that?
Well, I think you have to work as a team. You're only as solid as the rest of the people around you. And also, I want the life-work balance, if such a thing exists. I'm still going to go and chaperone the first grade field trip and then run back and try to finish the meetings. I love the creative part, which I think I've touched on quite a bit. And the brand is an extension of my aesthetic. But it's more than that. The operational side is so key. And I am constantly looking at ways in which how do we adjust our margins? What does our spend look like? Really going through P&L. So I think from my standpoint, it's really all of it holistically. And I don't think there's any founder in year one that would say something differently, not if they had the ambition to scale in the way that I do.
Okay. Then I think probably the most interesting moment of the whole interview, because we know Meghan Markle is preparing for a post-Prince Harry life. We know that. Vanity Fair backed up my reporting that she is shopping this post-divorce book already to publishing companies. And so Fortune did something very clever. They focused in on the financial aspect to it, and they put Meghan on the spot. And she admitted that, yes, she does want to be independent from Prince Harry. Watch this.
And I know financial independence has always been important to you, and you've said that it's the most empowering thing. I agree. And I think all the women in this room who are incredibly hardworking, every job is hard, but these career women also would agree. How do you think about that? Because you had a whole career, very successful before you got married. You're having a whole other career now. What's the importance of financial independence to you?
Well, financial independence is what gives you the freedom of choice. And I think in this day and age, we all need to be able to have our autonomy. That is a huge element of that. Financial literacy, for that reason, is something that I spend a lot of time on, specifically for young girls and their empowerment. And I think as women, especially in a room like this, we can all probably agree that as women, when we're supporting each other for all of these elements that might not necessarily be the ones that people want to hear us talk about, there's nothing taboo. Doesn't need to be anything taboo about talking about our financial independence or our independence overall. And as women, when we support each other, we are not simply supporting each other's lives, we're supporting each other's legacies. And that's the piece that's so powerful. When I'm supporting or investing in another female founder, I am investing in what she is going to do for the culture, for her business, the legacy she's going to leave, how that brand, if it's a CPG brand, is going to show up in people's homes. So it is all fundamentally important, and I don't think it's a conversation we should shy away from. I think it's one that we should really embrace together.
Thank you, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex.
Thanks,
Such an honor to have
Allison.
you with us today.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, everybody. Have a great time. Thank you.
Oh my God, the most tepid applause ever, P-Dina. And as Reeling the Narc pointed out, Meghan looks like a deer in headlights when asked about financial freedom. But she did go there, you know, and we know this. Again, we know this. She wants to be a billionaire in her own right, and she does want to wear the financial pants. But I guess this is the first time on the record she's gone there.
Yeah, absolutely. Megan definitely wants to have her own independence. She wants to be completely separate from Harry. And I've noticed a lot of times when she does speak about her relationships, or I mean her life in general, she talks about there's always things that come up that can change and turn. She said it a lot. And I think I need to put together a video doing that, because that to me is very key to how she's saying that life can throw you curveballs and you just gotta, go here, because I think she's preparing for that to happen. She's preparing for life to throw her a curveball and she can just now go off and be without Harry, because that's where her mindset is. She is in the mindset of trying to be independent and suddenly just doing something that she never thought would happen. And that's why she says that all the time. Megan is the kind of person that is setting herself up to not be dependent on Harry. We can clearly see that. Not once did she talk about her charity work with her husband, talk about her life and the goals that she has with her husband, their purpose together in their mission for Archwell Foundation. Everything is about her independent business. It's not about what she founded her whole life in America on, which was coming to America with her husband to have a different life, whatever. She certainly has started to divert from that together branding to an independent brand, to be completely on her own, and doesn't even mention her husband in anything that they have done together, because she's setting herself up to be all by herself. Absolutely.
It was absolutely fascinating. But as I say, I think the most interesting thing to me was the fact that the audience in the room have seen through it. Maybe a whole load of them have been watching P-Dina's channel and watching Outspoken, but they knew that what they were being served was total balderdash, and they were waiting for the more interesting people in the room, I guess, like Selena Gomez and Kamala Harris, although I'm not sure they would have got much more sense from Ms. Harris, given she's another proponent of word salad. But of course, if you do want much more from P-Dina and I, then make sure you subscribe to my Substack, www.outspoken.live, where you will get full access to the Royal Uncancelled After Show. We're talking Meghan Markle's fury over Victoria Beckham in just a moment as she becomes the Timu Spice Girl. So make sure, if you do want to watch that, you sign up to my Substack, www.outspoken.live. Paid subscribers get first access to the Royal Uncancelled After Show Monday to Friday. You can watch it live or on demand, but with no advertising whatsoever. That address again, www.outspoken.live. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.